I came home expecting dinner and laughter, not an ambush. My wife of 22 years looked me in the eye and told me she wanted an open marriage. My daughter, freshly back from college, smirked and called me old-fashioned. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd beg. But I'm a Marine, I don't surrender. If they wanted freedom, I'd give it to them on my terms. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the house. The scent of rosemary chicken filled the air, warm and savory, but it didn't soothe me. The silence did the opposite. It pressed against my skin like a weight. In this house, silence was a weapon. I'd learned that after 22 years of marriage, Marissa could wound me without raising her voice, and well, my daughter had inherited her mother's sharp tongue and used it with the recklessness of youth. I set my briefcase down by the door and loosened my tie. Dallas had been scorching today, and even the drive back from the office left a sheen of sweat on my neck. I should have been greeted by the ordinary chaos of family life, music from Chloe's room, the faint clatter of Marissa on her phone with friends, something to make the house feel alive. Instead, I walked into an arranged silence, the kind that made my instincts twitch. "Ethan," Marissa called from the dining room. Her voice was too calm, too prepared. I stepped in and found them waiting. Marissa sat across from an untouched glass of wine, her blonde hair curled perfectly, makeup subtle but deliberate. She looked like she dressed not for dinner, but for confrontation. Beside her, Chloe leaned casually in her chair, arms crossed, eyes sparkling with mischief. "What's this?" I asked. "Sit down, Dad," Chloe said, like she was calling me to the principal's office. I sat. I didn't want to. My body told me to stand, to command the space, to remind them whose roof they lived under. But the Marine in me knew better. Never enter a fight without reading the battlefield. So I sat. Marissa leaned forward, clasping her hands. "Ethan, I need to say something important, and I want you to hear me without shutting down." That was how she started every ambush. "Go on." She took a breath. "I feel trapped. After 22 years, I don't want to keep living like this. I want to try something new, an open relationship." The words landed like a round to the chest. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. My ears rang. "An open what?" "An open relationship," she repeated, steady this time. "We've grown apart. You're focused on business. I'm still young enough to," she hesitated, glancing at Chloe, "to want more out of life. More excitement. More passion. I don't want to divorce you. I just want freedom. The freedom to explore." I stared at her, then at Chloe. My daughter was smirking as if she'd been waiting for this. "Mom's being honest," Chloe chimed in. "And she's right. You've gotten old-fashioned. Controlling. Times are different now, Dad. People don't just stick to one person for life anymore. That's medieval." My jaw tightened. "You're siding with her?" "I'm not siding," Chloe said with a shrug. "I'm just saying Mom deserves happiness. And you," her smirk deepened, "you could use some loosening up. You don't exactly scream passion anymore." Heat rose in my chest. Anger, humiliation, something darker. My own daughter mocking my manhood. My wife, after decades of loyalty, declaring she wanted to sample other men like hors d'oeuvres at a party. I should have exploded. I should have pounded my fist on the table, told Marissa she was free to go to hell and Chloe could follow if she liked. That would have been the honest reaction. But years in the Marines had drilled something into me. Rage solves nothing if you let it out too soon. A soldier who fires first loses the war. So I breathed. One long inhale, one steady exhale. "You feel trapped," I said, my voice low measured. "You want freedom." "Yes," Marissa said, mistaking my calm for surrender. "And you think after everything I've built, the houses, the cars, the schools, the vacations, you think you get to say you want more passion and I just nod?" Marissa's chin lifted. "I think you'll understand that this is healthier than a bitter divorce." Chloe laughed under her breath. "Face it, Dad. You've been left behind. Women don't settle anymore. Mom's brave enough to admit it." Brave. That word echoed in me like a curse. I looked at Marissa, really looked at her. The woman I'd met at 24, radiant and hungry for life, had aged gracefully, yes, but the hunger was still there, Except now it wasn't for me. She wanted to rewrite the rules. To play a dangerous game. My rage coiled tight, a snake waiting to strike. But outwardly I gave them nothing. No crack in the armor. "All right," I said finally. That startled them both. "All right," Marissa repeated, eyes narrowing. "You want an open relationship?" I said slowly. "Fine. But understand this, I agree on my terms. Not yours." Chloe rolled her eyes. Here we go with the military rules again. I leaned back, folding my arms. Mock me all you want. But if this family's going to experiment with freedom, I let the word hang between us, heavy, filthy, then you'll both learn that I don't lose control. Not in business. Not in war. And not in marriage. Marissa flinched just slightly. Chloe's smirk faltered. I stood, buttoning my jacket. "Enjoy your dinner. I've lost my appetite." And with that, I left them in their perfect silence, my mind already moving, planning. Because if they wanted war, then war was exactly what they were going to get. By sunrise the anger had cooled to steel. I drove to Victor Hale's office before the city shook off its sleep. Victor and I served together. He knows how to turn rage into language. "You look like hell," he said as I came in. "Marissa wants an open marriage," I answered, "and Saturday, I'm not divorcing her." He blinked once. "So what do you want?" "A post-nup that makes freedom expensive," I said. "No alimony. No claim on any asset. Company, ranch, houses, trusts. If she leaves with what she brought. Ruthless. Necessary." He opened a pad. "On what basis?" "Mutual non-exclusivity with consequences. If she initiates separation, cohabits with another man for more than 2 weeks, moves assets, or harms the business, she forfeits." "Proof." "I'll have it." He studied me. "Is this about money or pain?" "It's about control," I said. "She wants sex without gravity. She can have it. I'll own the ground she lands on." He nodded once. "I'll draft it. But a judge could say punitive. Then we won't need a judge. We'll need her pride." We worked an hour, filing barbs into clauses. I added confidentiality for Chloe. I wasn't aiming to crush my daughter, only to stop her from confusing volume with wisdom. When I left, the heat already had the asphalt shimmering. Marissa's car wasn't at home. It returned near 10. I poured bourbon and waited at the island while she set her purse down like a flag. "We're meeting tomorrow," I said. "Who?" "Victor, your lawyer." "If we're opening the marriage, it'll be by rules." She wet her lips. That tiny tell pulled a wire through me, memory and irritation sparking at once. The sweater she wore skimmed her, ivory and soft. For a second I wanted to pull her into the pantry and remind her why she'd married me. She felt it too. Her eyes dipped, then steadied. "Fine," she said. "I'm not afraid of rules." "I know," I said, and let the bourbon burn. The conference room the next morning smelled like coffee and new carpet. Victor laid out the draft. Marissa arrived with a sleek attorney named Patterson and, to my surprise, Chloe, back from college for a few days and apparently eager to score the scrimmage. Patterson scanned once and frowned. "No alimony ever? Asset shields across the board? This is excessive." Victor put on his glasses. "It's clear." They fenced politely. I watched Marissa. Her face was composed, the pulse at her throat wasn't. Pride wouldn't let her retreat. "What about Ethan's freedom?" Marissa asked finally. "Does it carry cost?" "It carries discipline," I said. "I won't burn my house to warm someone else." "So noble." "Practical." Patterson jabbed at trigger clauses. Victor answered with velvet-wrapped razors. Demonstrable separation, material cohabitation, detrimental reliance. We added monitored accounts. I watched the idea itch under Marissa's skin and knew we were close. Victor slid the signature page forward. Both parties acknowledge informed consent. No duress. Patterson leaned to Marissa. "You can walk away." Chloe squeezed her mother's hand. "You've got this. Don't let him control you." Silence settled, thick, humid, decisive. I kept my face empty and my heartbeat slow. Marissa stared at me, searching for a flinch. I gave her patience instead. Pride hates patience. She took the pen. Marissa, Patterson hissed. Marissa signed. Chloe laughed softly, triumphant. That's my mom. Victor filed the papers into a folder and nudged my shoe under the table. A private question I answered with a blink. In the hall, Marissa and I walked to the elevators. Our hands brushed, static climbing my arm. 22 years builds circuitry you don't cut with one night's announcement. She looked up, pupils wide. Memory moved through us, breath, skin, the language of bodies we'd once spoken fluently and lately in translation. You think this will scare me, she said. It will measure you, I answered. Then measure me. The doors opened. She stepped in with Patterson and Chloe. As they closed, Chloe lifted her chin at me, smiling like a winner. Congrats, Dad, she said. You finally loosened up. The silver panels reflected my face back, calm, remote, the expression I wear in boardrooms before I buy them. Beneath it ran two currents, desire I would not indulge and strategy one would. That night I lay awake beside a woman who once slept with her leg thrown over mine, a quiet claim pressed into my ribs. She faced the window now. The bed had become a border we pretended not to see. The house breathed, ice maker knocking, the air system sighing, and I studied the shape of our new life. Contracts aren't cages, they're maps. They mark cliffs and name who holds the rope. If she wanted to climb, fine. I would decide when to throw the line, and at what price. The wanting between us didn't vanish. It waited, coiled, like a wire under paint. I would touch it when I chose or not at all. I texted Victor as I reached the garage the next morning. File it. He replied with a thumbs up and a warning. Keep the mask on. I slipped the phone away. The mask wasn't new. It was the part of me that survives. The engine caught with a clean, hungry sound. The ink was dry, the trap polite, and the rules official. Marissa had chosen freedom. I had set the cost. Now we would both discover who could actually afford it. Adrian Vega entered my life the way a storm line creeps over the prairie, first as a rumor, then as a dark edge that makes you taste metal. I knew his name from zoning fights and glossy profiles, charismatic restaurateur, great palate, better PR, and the worst habit a married man can have, he called other men's wives muse. Marissa met him years ago at a charity tasting. Back then we laughed in the car and had sex while the dishwasher purred, a joke beating against stainless steel. 22 years shrank jokes and stretched silences. In the gaps, Adrian became a story she told with too much light in her voice. A week after the post-nup, he messaged her. She dressed for book club, in a black slip that didn't pretend to be academic. It skimmed her like ink. She smelled like orange blossom and something salter, anticipation. You're late for your literature, I said, closing an appraisal. Don't wait up. She left a lipstick crescent on a glass she didn't drink and floated out. The door clicked. The house exhaled. I didn't follow. You don't shadow a decision you engineered. I parked on Ross because a friend on council confirms things faster than a matrix can lie. Through Dovetail's windows I saw them. His palm low on her back, her laugh tilted toward him, Brunello glowing like small sunsets. They looked like an advertisement for harm. I went home and cooked a steak I didn't want. The pan snapped. The room smelled like victory I hadn't earned. She came in at 2, heels in hand, dress carrying a new note. His cologne, syrupy and insistent. She froze to find me awake. How was book club? I asked. Educational. She wanted me to rage so she could feel brave. I let the moment pass. The next afternoon Chloe blew in with caffeine and certainty. So, Mom actually did it, she announced. Adrian is incredible. He makes her feel seen. You were there? I met them after. He's alive, did you? Manage. Women want more than a mortgage. And men? I asked. They want women who aren't dead inside. I reached for coffee and not the jugular. Then you approve. I celebrate it. Maybe freedom will rub off on you. Maybe, I said. The thing about traps is you don't explain them to the mice. By midweek a broker texted me a photo from across Dovetail's bar. Marissa's profile lit like an expensive candle, Adrian's thumb idling near her knee. The caption was a shrug emoji. My phone filled with concern, curiosity, offers to drink, polite autopsies. Only one mattered, an investor who wrote, optics. I replied, handled. He sent back a single period, the punctuation of trust. Marissa glowed. New lover shine is photochemical. It changes how a person moves. She hummed making coffee, wore silk under ordinary clothes, a secret she wanted the world to sense without seeing. I've watched victory sit on men the same way, the posture of the newly confirmed. We ate together once that week. Chloe arranged it, a tribunal disguised as family dinner at a farm-to-table spot with reclaimed wood. Adrian recommended the Tempranillo, Marissa said, and using his name at our table felt like striking a match in a library. Great nose, Chloe added. He says authenticity is everything. Authenticity is expensive, I said. But yes, it sells. Don't be smug, Dad, Chloe said. You're irrelevant to this. We're choosing joy. Marissa raised her glass, eyes on mine. Defiance, a dare, and behind both the tremor of someone who wants to be caught and forgiven without admitting wrongdoing. I left it unanswered and talked escrow timelines while they planned jazz night at Dovetail. When the check came, Chloe grabbed it to contribute, then discovered her card was declined. She'd forgotten I'd cut the auxiliary accounts until she proved she could treat money like an adult. Her cheeks went stiff. I slid my card to the waiter without looking at her. Outside she spat, "You humiliated me." "You humiliated yourself," I said. "Freedom has invoices." Marissa touched Chloe's shoulder, Mother Tiger stirred. Her gaze met mine. The air tightened like wire. We both felt it, that stubborn, unretired wanting. I didn't move. Sex is a language only two people speak fluently. Fluency is not ownership. At home I poured a rye and toured the quiet exhibits of our life. Wedding photo, the seashell Chloe painted, the dent where a Christmas tree once kissed the wall. Families are galaxies held by gravity and habit. I could feel the math changing. I took the contract from the safe and read it again, not for comfort but calibration. Clauses like calm edges, no cruelty written down, just geometry, actions and outcomes. I put it away and stood in the dark until my pupils went wide. Near midnight my phone lit. A broker, Adrian's courting an investor with your wife as ambience, and a friend at the club. A photo of Adrian laughing with a councilman I owed nothing to, Marissa's hand on his sleeve like a seal. The city loves a story, it is indifferent to endings. Marissa paused at the bedroom door. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "I'm observing." Half relieved, half annoyed, she turned. The dress slipped an inch, lamplight catching skin like a secret. For a dumb, human moment I wanted to cross the room, gather her hair, and remind her how profoundly I know her body. Wanting is not a plan. I let it pass. She slept. I didn't. Strategy is cold company, but it's awake. Rain shouldered into the city, and somewhere between thunder and the ceiling fan a decision hardened. I would not chase, or shield, or bleed to prove I had a heart. There are cleaner ways to win a war than chalk outlines. At 6 the streets were rinsed. I laced my shoes, checked the day's meetings, and texted Victor, "We're still covered." His reply was instant, "Always." I pocketed the phone and listened to the quiet house. All right, I thought, and the calm that followed felt like a bolt sliding home. Let them perform. I'll keep the books. The night Marissa didn't come home, Dallas put on its jeweled mask. I dressed in a black tux, left the engraved watch she once gave me on the counter, and chose another. Time had picked a side. Sofia Vega waited in the Statler lobby like a problem you want to keep. Slate dress nodded at the small of her back, curiosity turning into a decision. "Mr. Cole," she said, offering a hand, "or Ethan, if we're pretending to be civilized. Whatever keeps the photographers guessing." We were not lovers. Not yet. But the Veterans Gala is built for seduction. Candles interrogating collarbones, brass polished till it looks like memory. Our table sat under a chandelier that trembled when the band found low notes. "Is your father coming?" I asked. "He's busy demonstrating authenticity," she said. "It involves decanters and the word muse. We fit too easily." That worried me, Easy is how you drift. The MC praised sacrifice. Sophia studied the lines bracketing my mouth and didn't ask for war stories. She just touched my sleeve, light as a wire. Dance with me. I don't dance, I maneuver. But the band played a standard that smelled like the 50s, and my hand found the cool skin above her knot. We moved and the room pretended not to watch. Reporters orbit like mayflies, I let them filament us with little flashes. Some wars are won by letting the right stories escape. Halfway through the song, my phone buzzed. Adrian checked into the Crescent. I didn't need the room number. Sophia read my jaw. Bad news, she murmured. Confirmation, I said. Then keep holding me, she answered, and I did, letting the music do the arithmetic. By the second course, the whispers had sorted themselves into paragraphs. A councilwoman who owed me a vote clocked us. A developer who'd bid against me last quarter looked pleased to see the gods misbehave. I poured Sophia wine and told a marine story that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with weather. Between courses she leaned in. Why me? Because your father loves theater, I said. Sometimes the best way to close a loop is with an unexpected pen. And because I look good on your arm. That's the part where honesty becomes strategy. She laughed, low and adult. He'll hate this. When you say hate, do you mean call a reporter or start a war? Both, she said. Attention is his oxygen. Then inhale. We let the cameras draft their captions. I took her home before midnight because endurance beats conquest when the city is listening. Outside her building the heat rose like old applause. We faced each other across a polite foot of air crowded with things neither of us was ready to admit. I know you're using me, she said. I know you know. But then we can both be interesting. She touched my jaw with 2 fingers, like a tailor noting a seam. You're not as cold as you want to be, Ethan. No one is, I said. Back home the bedroom still held the ghost of Marissa's perfume and a cologne that wasn't mine. I showered it off with water so hot it felt like penance. When I came out, Chloe sat cross-legged on my bed, a judge in leggings. You went out with her, she said. Good evening to you too. Dad. The word landed like a slammed locker. Sofia Vega? That's vile. She's 24. She's his daughter. And your mother spent the night with him. That's different. How? I asked. She searched for an answer and found only heat. Because she's finally happy. You've been a statue for years. Statues hold up buildings, I said. And I'm not a statue. I'm a hinge. You humiliated us. People were taking pictures. I imagine the same things your friends sent me last week. Color climbed her neck. I used to think you were strong. Now I think you're cruel. Strength is what still works when approval stops, I said. You called freedom a virtue. This is freedom. You don't get to rename it because it doesn't flatter you tonight. Her chin trembled. Comprehension cracked the lacquer. She pointed toward the closet that held Marissa's cocktail armor. You're going to break her. She broke the rules. I'm just not cushioning the floor. Chloe shook her head and fled, footsteps loud with youth. A door slammed, and the house swallowed the echo like it had swallowed bigger noises. Birth cries, fight night sobbing, the tear of Christmas paper. I texted Victor one word. Effective. He replied. Whispers confirm. The city was doing half my work for me. So was my restraint. Near dawn the lock turned. Marissa slipped in barefoot, heels in hand, hair the glamorous mess advertisers sell with tousle. She froze at the sight of me awake. You look good in borrowed midnight, I said. You look pathetic, she snapped, then softer. Parading a girl? A woman, I said. A veterans gala. A dance. You opened a door, Marissa. I let in air. That air is poison. Only if you keep mistaking hunger for oxygen. We held each other's eyes, prisoners of a history that still sparked when iron met flint. I hated that I wanted her even then, with the smell of another man's room clinging to her skin. Hate is still a kind of heat. For a hard second I imagined pressing her hands to the tile, reclaiming a language we once spoke fluently. Sex, apology, power braided into one breath. Desire throbbed, discipline won. She retreated to the shower. Water drummed fast absolutions. I stood at the window and watched commuters stitch the city with headlamps. By morning, names would attach. By lunch, captions would harden. By dinner, invitations would shift, alliances tilt, money sniff the wind and choose its table. My task was simpler: keep the ledger, keep my head, keep the promises I'd made to a younger, poorer, clearer version of myself. The city loves a story. For once, I was the one writing it. Marissa didn't slam doors often, but that morning the whole house shook like artillery. She came storming into the kitchen, hair damp from a shower she hadn't finished, blouse clinging where it caught her skin. Her eyes were bloodshot, her lipstick fierce, the kind of red you wear to declare war. "We're closing this marriage," she announced, slamming her palms flat on the counter. I stirred my coffee, black and calm. "We're not." Her laugh was sharp, incredulous. "You think I'll stand here while you take out the restaurateur's daughter for show and tell? You've humiliated me. You've humiliated Chloe. Chloe humiliated herself long before I took Sofia Vega to a dance," I said. "She applauded freedom when it was your skin in another man's sheets. She can't revoke the applause now." Marissa circled me like a woman pacing the bars of her own cage. "This is different. I was exploring. You're punishing me." I set my cup down. "No. I'm reminding you of the rules you signed. You opened the door, Marissa. The door stays open." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. For a second the fight drained from her posture, and I saw the woman I married, the girl who once danced barefoot in a kitchen apartment with me, who whispered dreams about children and futures into my neck. Then she squared her shoulders and let pride smother memory. "You're cruel," she hissed. "I'm consistent," I replied. The silence stretched, heavy enough to bend the air between us. She broke it first, pushing away from the counter. "You'll regret this." "I promise you will." At dinner that night Chloe did the shouting for her. She waved her fork like a spear, stabbing at the roasted chicken I'd cooked. "You're disgusting, Dad," she said, dragging some 24-year-old around like a trophy. "Do you know what people are saying?" I carved a piece of chicken with surgical calm. "Probably the same things they said when your mother slipped into Adrian's bar and forgot her vows." "That's not the same." "It's exactly the same. Freedom doesn't come with an asterisk that excludes fathers." Chloe shoved back from the table, chair legs screeching. "You're destroying this family." "This family destroyed itself the minute honesty became optional," I said. "I'm just the one refusing to lie about it." Her mouth opened, then closed, words burning out before ignition. She stormed upstairs. Marissa followed, her heels hammering the staircase, her voice rising in muffled bursts behind Chloe's door. I stayed at the table, chewing in silence, tasting victory that was ash on my tongue. Days blurred into weeks. Marissa's nights out became routine. New dresses, new perfume, sometimes new lies, sometimes none at all. But she watched me with a strange tension, half suspicion, half hunger. She hated my calm, but it drew her. Control has its own gravity. One evening, she cornered me in the hallway, her body brushing mine as she reached for a shelf she didn't need. The heat of her skin licked at me, and memory sparked. The curve of her hips I once owned, the sigh in her throat when sex wasn't barter but communion. "Do you even care anymore?" she whispered. "Care?" I asked. "Or control?" Her eyes flickered, betraying both. I stepped back, leaving her hands suspended in air. "You made your choice," I said. "I'm living with it. So will you." She stood frozen, lips parted, a woman who wanted to be seized but refused to admit it. I left her in the hall, the echo of possibility throbbing like a wound. The cracks widened. Chloe, once smug, began to falter. She caught me in the driveway one night as I came home from a board meeting. "Dad," she said, voice smaller than I'd heard in years. "Why are you doing this? Why can't you just stop?" "Because you don't close a door after you've blown it off its hinges," I said. Her eyes brimmed, but anger masked it quick. "You're enjoying this." "No. I'm surviving it." She turned away, shoulders tight, as if she wanted to ask for mercy but didn't know the word. Marissa finally broke during a stormy night, rain hammering the roof like fists. She stood at the foot of our bed, hair wild, eyes wet, chest heaving. "Please," she whispered. "Let's close it. Just you and me. I can't breathe like this." I sat up slowly, meeting her eyes with the calm of a man who has already measured the battlefield. "You opened the door," I said. "And now you'll live with it." Her sob cracked the room in half. She collapsed onto her side of the bed, curled tight, trembling. I watched the storm batter the windows, watched her shoulders quake, and felt nothing, or maybe everything, compressed into a diamond of control. The door was open. It would stay open. And Marissa, my wife, my once partner, my betrayer, would suffocate on the very freedom she demanded. Money is loud when it leaves. I hadn't planned to teach my daughter with silence, but the moment I canceled her credit line, silence did the work. She found out at a boutique in Highland Park. The manager called me before he called her a rideshare. I told him to be kind and ring up nothing. Chloe burst into my office wearing humiliation like a fever. "What did you do?" "I stopped paying for your declarations," I said. "Freedom was your word. Learn its budget." "You're punishing me because I backed Mom." "I'm correcting course." "You're 20. You argue case law but confuse righteousness with rent. If you want the world to treat you like an adult, feed yourself." She threw her handbag onto the chair like a body. "Fine. I'll get a job." "I think you never had to." The part of me that wanted to catch her kept both hands in my pockets. I let her storm out. Her first job lasted 3 days, hostessing where the shift manager said, "Sweetheart," like a leash. On the 4th night she came home with mascara tracks and the smell of fryer oil. She paused when she saw me cooking. Once, we made pancakes here at midnight. Now she stood on the far side of the island like it was a border. "I'm hungry," she said. "Plate." "Wait. How long are you going to keep this up?" she asked. "Until you stop treating me like an ATM with a face." I miss Mom being normal. She chose a new normal, I said. So did you. The next week she moved in with friends, 3 girls, 1 bathroom, a broken AC. I carried 1 duffel to the curb and nothing else. She watched my hands for an extra box, a last-minute rescue. I kept the pose of indifference because I believed in the lesson more than my comfort. At night the house sounded wrong. A star in our constellation went dark. I filled the hours with laps, work, bourbon, and the kind of sex that ends in absence. Sophia kept her distance by my request. We still traded precise messages. Once she sent a photo of her wrist stained by wine and wrote, "We should stop pretending." I replied, "Later." Chloe's second job was at a boutique gym selling hope in monthly installments. When I passed one afternoon, she stood behind the desk in a too clean polo. She saw me, stiffened, then pretended to study a tablet. I left a bottle of water on the counter. "Hydrate," I said. She didn't look up, but she drank. Pride has a soundtrack, clattering plates, timed smiles, the wobble of a scooter when you've only driven a German car. I heard it when she called after closing, voice cracked but trying for casual. "Dad, the landlord wants the rent in a cashier's check." "I have most of it but—" "No," I said gently. "You have what you chose." Silence. Then a small, naked sound. "Okay. You can train a soldier to ignore crying. You cannot train a father." I paced the dark, then wrote a number on an envelope and put it in the safe, a mercy I promised not to use unless she said the word help. She didn't. Stubbornness is our crest. Weeks grind people into truer shapes. Her makeup thinned, her laughter did too. She left fewer barbs when she came for mail. One afternoon she touched the wedding photo on the console, the 3 of us in coastal wind. "We were happy then," she said. "We were busy," I answered. "Do you ever think about starting over?" "I am." "With her?" "With myself." Truth. I felt attraction like a live wire around Sophia, and restraint like a burn. But I kept my promise. No choices while bleeding. I would not use sex to cauterize what pride had cut. The night Chloe fell was a Tuesday dressed as disaster. The gym fired her for telling a client the truth. Her roommate's boyfriend moved in and sang after midnight. The scooter died, and a cop ticketed her. When she finally reached our door, She was rain-soaked, furious, and small. "I can't do this," she said, and then the word I had waited for and dreaded, "help." I sat her at the table and made tea, because ceremony frames collapse. When steam curled between us, I said, "Good. Now we begin." We drew a budget. We listed debts. We sold the handbags she once called investments. I matched every dollar she earned with 50 cents and promised 1-to-1 after 3 months of steady work. That night she slept in her old room with the door open, like when storms scared her as a child. I stood in the hall too long and remembered the weight of her sleeping on my chest. In the morning she apologized to the coffee maker. "For what?" I asked. "For calling you cruel," she said. "You're just not soft." "I can be," I said. "I choose when." For the first time since she'd come home from college full of theory and heat, we understood each other. She brewed coffee, cooked eggs. The house sounded almost like itself. Marissa texted at noon, "Chloe staying with you?" I replied, "Yes." "Then, dinner tonight?" "Just us." I felt the old gravity. I typed, "Another night," and set the phone face down. Chloe started at a small accounting office, answering phones and learning why numbers behave. She brought home stories about clients who lied to themselves with receipts. We laughed. She asked about Sophia once, weaponless. "She's fine," I said. "Money is loud when it returns too. It hums in a running fridge and the confidence of paid rent." Chloe began to hum again. We walked past the contract on the shelf without speaking its name. On Sunday we sat in a small chapel. Marissa was 2 rows ahead. At the sign of peace she turned, hand extended. My palm met hers. Then Chloe touched our hands, bridging what could not yet be bridged. Afterward, in the lot, Chloe squeezed my arm. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not letting me drown in style." I watched her go and felt, for the first time in months, that something I loved might survive in a shape I could respect. Inside, the safe hummed with the unused envelope. I left it there. Mercy tastes sweeter when you don't have to spend it. The house had grown cavernous without Chloe's noise, but Marissa filled the silence with shadows of her own. She drifted through the rooms like a ghost haunting a place she hadn't yet died in. The bright dresses she once flaunted now hung limp in the closet, still smelling faintly of Adrian's cologne. Her laugh, once sharp enough to wound, was gone, replaced by sighs that lingered in doorways. Adrian had stopped calling. That much was obvious. At first she lied about it, pretending she was too busy to see him, pretending he was out of town. But the perfume bottles stopped emptying, the new heels stopped appearing. I could feel the tension building every night she returned home earlier than expected, climbing into bed with a stiffness that betrayed her disappointment. One night, just past midnight, I heard her in the bathroom. The faucet ran too long. I stood at the doorway and found her sitting on the tile, legs pulled to her chest, phone dark beside her. She was still dressed in the blouse she'd worn to dinner with her friends. Her mascara had bled into lines down her cheeks. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "He's gone." "Adrian?" Her laugh was brittle. "Who else?" "He said I was too much work. That I was needy." "Can you believe that?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "Yes." Her head snapped up. "You're cruel." "I'm honest. Men like Adrian don't want wives. They want ornaments. You were always going to be a phase for him." She pressed her palms to her face, muffling a sob. "You enjoy this?" "No. But I warned you." The fight drained out of her then. She let her hands fall, her eyes glassy with something that wasn't just grief, it was humiliation. She crawled back to bed without changing, and for the first time in years, she didn't bother to turn her back to me. She just lay there, facing the ceiling, waiting for sleep that didn't come. The spiral deepened. Days later, she confessed something darker. "I need to see a doctor," she said at breakfast, her voice so soft I almost didn't hear. "Why?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I caught something from Adrian." For a moment, I felt the old reflex, a husband's instinct to comfort, to shield, to pull her close. But the reflex withered. I only nodded. "Go. Get treated." "You don't care at all?" she whispered, trembling. You cared enough for both of us when you opened your legs for him, I said coldly. She flinched. Tears welled. That was the moment something in her spirit cracked. I saw it happen, like a mirror fracturing from the inside. After that, she barely left the house. The woman who once dominated luncheons and fundraisers now hid behind drawn curtains, drinking too much wine before noon, letting the television play to empty rooms. Her clothes hung loose as she lost weight, her hair dulled without the salon's attention. And every so often, she tried to reach me. One night she slid into bed naked, pressing against me. Her skin was warm, familiar, trembling. "Ethan," she whispered, her breath on my ear. "Please. I need you." For a dangerous second, I almost gave in. The scent of her, the curve of her hip, the memory of years when sex meant connection, it all came flooding back. My body responded, traitorously eager. But then I remembered Adrian. Remembered her laughter at dinner, Chloe mocking me, the signatures on the contract. I rolled away, leaving her stranded in the middle of the bed. "You can't keep punishing me," she said, her voice breaking. "You're punishing yourself," I replied. She sobbed quietly until sleep took her. By autumn, she was a shell. At charity events, whispers about Adrian's disappearance followed her like smoke. She stopped attending altogether. Chloe, hardened by her own struggles, visited less and less, too embarrassed by her mother's decline to linger. The mansion became Marissa's mausoleum, and I let her haunt it. She had demanded freedom. She had tasted it. Now she lived with the consequences, lonely, diminished, aching in silence. Sometimes, in the dark, I wondered if I'd gone too far. If my discipline had crossed into cruelty. But then I would hear her crying softly in the next room, and I would remind myself, she chose this. I only enforced the rules. And rules, unlike people, don't break. They bend you until you do. We kept telling ourselves it was strategy. Then one humid night above the wine bar, strategy burned away. Sophia set 2 glasses on the counter and forgot to pour. "You keep standing at the doorway," she said. "Either enter or tell me to lock it." "I don't enter rooms I can't hold." "You already hold it." She closed the distance and kissed me, unhurried, unapologetic. Crystal rattled. Her dress loosened with one tug. The map of her shoulder was warm under my mouth. Her breath hitched and steadiness turned to heat. We took each other to the bedroom while rain ticked the windows like a metronome. There was no revenge in it, no audience. Only sex that felt like oxygen after months of thin air. After, she lay on my chest and traced the scar under my ribs. "How many times did you rebuild yourself?" "As many as it took to keep standing." "Then stand with me," she said. "Not over me. With me." The word lodged where certainty used to be. I fell asleep to the storm sanding the city clean. We did not perform us for Dallas. I ran before dawn. She joined me for the last mile, laughing when I refused earbuds. I cooked, real food, not decoys, and she ate barefoot at my island, teasing my neat piles of herbs. We learned each other's mornings, her humming before coffee, my habit of reading contracts like they were short stories. Our differences clicked like well-cut threads. Chloe noticed first. She dropped by to return a blazer and found Sophia in my shirt, hair wet, no apology in her posture. My daughter froze, then steadied. "Are you happy?" she asked me, but let the question include the room. "Yes," I said. Sophia held her gaze and didn't flinch. Chloe nodded once. "Don't screw it up." It wasn't approval, but it wasn't war. After Sophia left, Chloe added, "She looks at you like you're a person, not a policy." Then she hugged me quickly, embarrassed by the softness. Marissa unraveled in the background, missed salon appointments, unanswered texts, a drift toward daytime wine and late-night silence. I left a list of doctors on the counter and a glass of water by her chair. She ignored both. The house felt like 2 timelines sharing walls. Work stopped being only escape. I took Sophia to a sight walk on the edge of the Trinity, townhomes rising like piano keys. She asked the kind of questions that make money honest. Why this frontage? Who are we building for? And listened to answers instead of lining them with applause. At lunch we shared a bottle of Topo on a stack of gypsum. When she brushed dust from my lapel, her fingers lingered. Want, once a tactic, became a temperature we lived at. The night everything shifted, I found her in my bathroom, holding a thin white stick like it had spoken. She didn't cry. She met my eyes with the calm I trusted. "I'm pregnant," she said. The word filled the room. For a heartbeat, every version of my life flickered. Boy in a Carolina garage, marine under a too bright sky, husband painting a nursery, father lecturing a grown daughter about budgets. A beginning again. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Terrified," she said. "And hungry." I laughed in a way that loosened something I hadn't known was knotted. I gathered her. "We'll make a plan," I told her. "We'll make a life." "Say it again." "We'll make a life." We sat on the tile and drew the first lines. Doctors, calendars, the room that would stop being storage and start being a promise. "Plans steady me." They steadied her. Later she took my hand and placed it low on her belly. "I don't need your name to survive," she said. "I need your presence." "You'll have both," I answered, and felt truth click into the place where vengeance used to live. Chloe took the news with sober grace. She listened, went quiet, then hugged Sophia longer than intended. "I'm getting a sibling at 21, she said, half laugh, half wonder. "Okay, universe." Marissa heard from the city before she heard from me. She called that night, voice small. "Is it true?" "Yes." A thin sound, like paper tearing. "Ethan." The sentence had no bridge. She hung up. I let the quiet stand. The weeks that followed carried small bureaucracies of becoming. Appointment reminders, vitamins lined like soldiers, a sonogram I stared at until the snow of it made sense. Our sex turned tender, then hungry, then tender again, the choreography of a house learning new music. My precision bent in useful ways. I slept less, cooked more, and learned to keep ginger on hand. When fear found her, I stayed. When midnight demanded grilled peaches, I sugared a pan until the kitchen smelled like July. We stood in the half-emptied room with paint swatches taped like flags. "We could fail," I said, not as an apology but as a safeguard. "We could," she answered, "and still choose each other tomorrow." I kissed her paint-flecked wrist and tasted chalk and resolve. "Tomorrow then." Dallas kept talking. About my supposed ruthlessness, about a restaurateur short on charisma without a borrowed spotlight, about Marissa's vanishings. The city could keep its gossip. I walked the perimeter like I once walked fences on the ranch, testing locks, checking for weather, promising the dark I would hold what I said I would hold. A beginning is not a rescue. It is a vow. I had spent a year speaking in consequences. Now I needed another dialect. Care without weakness, devotion without theater. I practiced it in ordinary ways. Prenatal vitamins on the counter, a hand at the small of her back when the world pressed too close, a calendar blocked for llamas, humor when panic arrived. Hope came back like a sound before the song. In the quiet between tasks I could hear it, the smallest, most insistent rhythm in the house, proof that time was moving toward us again. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe without apology that I could be both the man who holds the line and the man who opens a door and does not regret what enters. The call came on a Tuesday evening, just as Sophia was settling on the couch with a blanket and the sound of the baby's heartbeat still echoing in my mind from that morning's appointment. My phone lit up with Marissa's name. I almost ignored it, but something in me answered. "Ethan." Her voice trembled, wet with tears. "Please don't hang up." I didn't. I listened. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "The nights, the emptiness, the way people look at me. I thought I was free. I thought I was brave. But I was wrong. I ruined everything." Her sobs crackled through the line. The woman who once walked into rooms like she owned the oxygen now sounded like she was gasping for scraps. "I want to come home," she whispered. "Just us. Close the marriage. Please, Ethan. Please." For a long time I said nothing. My eyes shifted to Sophia, who was watching me with steady calm, hand on the small curve of her stomach. That was my answer. "No," I said finally. Silence. Then a gasp. "No. You chose this path, Marissa. You demanded freedom, and I gave it to you. You signed the contract. You opened the door. There's no going back now. But I love you, she cried. I've always loved you. Love isn't what you showed me. Love isn't what you showed Chloe. Love is what I have now, right here in this room. You don't get to burn the house down and then ask to move back in when you're cold. The line stayed open long enough for me to hear her break. A wail, then silence. Then nothing but the click of disconnection. 2 weeks later, Victor delivered the divorce papers. No fight. No negotiations. Just Marissa's signature scrawled in ink that looked like it had been dragged out of her. She didn't contest a thing, Victor said, sliding the folder across my desk. She forfeited everything. You own it all now. I nodded, my throat tight. I had expected another battle, one last attempt to claw back power. Instead, she'd surrendered completely. Where is she? I asked. Houston. Back with her parents. I thanked him and closed the folder. The war was over, but victory felt like ashes. Chloe came by that evening. She looked older, leaner, tougher, the arrogance scrubbed off by bills and survival. She sat at the island where she used to mock me and poured herself coffee without asking. Mom signed, she said flatly. Yes. She called me. Chloe's eyes were glassy, but her voice steady. Begged me to take her side. I told her I couldn't. Not anymore. That must have hurt. It did, she admitted. Then she looked at Sophia, who was rubbing her belly absently. But I think she hurt herself more than you ever could. Sophia smiled gently. We all make choices. Chloe nodded, then surprised me by reaching across the counter to squeeze my hand. You were right, Dad. I just didn't want you to be. For the first time in a long time, I saw not a spoiled child, not an enemy in my own house, but my daughter, the girl who once built pillow forts in the living room and begged me to read just one more story before bed. Marissa sent her last message a month later. A simple text, I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I deleted it. Sophia came into the room, barefoot, her hair damp from a shower. She saw my face and touched my chest, her hand warm, grounding. What is it? Nothing, I said, and kissed her forehead. Because it was nothing now. Marissa's apologies couldn't rewrite the past. They couldn't give back the years, the trust, the man I had been before betrayal turned me into steel. I had a future in front of me, a new family, a new son, a woman who looked at me without mockery or calculation. That was the only direction worth walking. When the divorce decree arrived, final and irreversible, I sat in my study with the paper in my hands. 22 years reduced to a few pages stamped by a court. I felt the weight of it, then set it down. Sophia came in, resting my hand on her belly. He kicked, she whispered, smiling. I felt it, the undeniable proof of life, of tomorrow. For the first time in years, I didn't think about what was lost. I thought about what was coming. Marissa was gone. Chloe was finding her own way. And me, I was finally alive again. 5 years resculpted Dallas. Towers rose, and my son learned to run on floors that once echoed with another family's arguments. We named him Gabriel because he arrived like an announcement. Sophia finished school part-time, opened a tasting room on Bishop, and taught our boy that kitchens were for making, not posing. I sold 2 holdings and bought a parcel by the river. Life became measurable by small mercies, shirts drying on a line, a stroller under live oaks, evenings that ended in tired laughter. Marissa was a rumor in that span. Quick texts from Chloe, a postcard once from Galveston, then nothing. The city remembered her like a tune you can't place. When people said her name, they added a question mark. I didn't look for her. I stopped checking the rearview for ghosts. On a Wednesday in late October, a call cut through my lunch. Houston code. I almost let it pass. Reflex picked up. Mr. Cole, a man said. I'm Dr. Anand at St. Luke's. I'm afraid this is about Marissa. I went cold in sections. What about her? He spoke with the gentleness of people who break worlds for a living. Complications. Untreated infections that learned patience and then indifference. A heart that tried until it didn't. The apartment manager had found her. Next of kin was still my name. The bureaucracy hadn't caught up to the divorce or had chosen not to see it. I thanked him because there is nothing else to say to the messenger. Then I told Sophia. She put a hand on my shoulder and said nothing, which is the gift the living can give the stunned. The drive to Houston down I-45 felt endless. Chloe met me in the hospital lobby in a blazer that tried to make her immune. She looked older than her age in the ways that count and younger in the ways that hurt. "I didn't visit enough," she said into my collar. "You visited as much as you could afford," I answered. The morgue tech was careful. The sheet folded back. The violence of stillness surprised me. It always does. Death doesn't look like sleep. It looks like a decision nothing can bargain with. Marissa's face was narrow. Pride had left no forwarding address. I thought of the first time I saw her in a sunburned dress and of 1,000 ordinary mornings we never praised because we were busy surviving them. Love doesn't die clean, it evaporates and leaves scale. The administrator asked about arrangements. I chose simple. A chapel no bigger than a living room. A closed casket because memory can't survive too many exact details. I called 2 of her old friends. I called Victor. He drove down to handle the paperwork so I could carry the rest. Chloe didn't come to the service. She tried, then sat in her car outside the chapel until the clock embarrassed her. She texted, "I can't." I wrote back, "Then don't." The pews held a few faces from a former orbit, all doing the polite mathematics of grief. The priest worked through the words like a tradesman. I placed a single gardenia because she liked how the scent outlasted the petals. My son wriggled in Sophia's lap, impatient with ceremony. After, I walked the small rectangle of lawn alone. The sky above the freeway offered an indifferent blue. I waited for revelation and got maintenance. A breeze, a siren, sprinklers clicking on. And then clarity. Choices harden into roads, and roads don't circle back just because you miss where you turned. I had believed that when I drafted the contract. I believed it more now, with the permanence stamped. Driving home, Chloe slept most of the way, the child visible under the woman. At a Buc-ee's she bought 2 ridiculous keychains and pressed one into my palm. "For luck," she said, almost smiling. She had not gone to the funeral, but she had come to the aftermath. That counts. Dallas received us without drama. Gabriel launched himself at my knees and demanded a story in which a crane defeats a dragon. I made one up, and he believed every impossible second. Later, when he slept, Sophia leaned in the doorway and studied me. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I am what remains," I said. "What remains can be beautiful," she said, and cupped my face. We sat on the back steps with 2 bourbons and the quiet. I said the truth I'd been pacing. I had loved Marissa with a young man's certainty. I had punished her with a middle-aged man's competence. I had not killed her. But I had let the consequences ripen, and the harvest tastes like iron. There is no parade for that kind of victory. There shouldn't be. Before bed I checked the locks, a habit I can't break. In Gabriel's room I retucked the blanket he always kicks off. In the office I opened the safe and lifted the folder that had once been strategy and was now archaeology. I set it down without opening it. Paper is not absolution. At midnight, when the house admitted to its quiet, I wrote a letter I will never send. I hope the ocean you wanted finally looked back. I hope the music sounded like more than permission. I hope some soft afternoon forgave you. Then I slept, and no dream pulled me into the past. Morning revived ordinary mercies. Breakfast. Shoes by the door. A boy's question about why thunder doesn't have a face. A woman's kiss that said stay. I am not less disciplined now, I am exacting about different things. I measure time by who is warm beside me and what small life draws breath under my roof. The irreversible end was not hers alone. It was the end of the story in which I'm the man who keeps score. I am learning another role, keeper of beginnings, steward of days. When the sun lifted over the Trinity, I laced my shoes and ran. The city smelled of cut grass and heat to come. I carried the weight of all the doors we opened and refused to close, and the knowledge that some doors don't swing, they lock behind you. I didn't rattle the handle. I kept moving toward a square of light where my family waited, newer, smaller, truer than the one I buried, and enough.